is there a really big mistake you see over and over again, or that you've seen, once, that you see people sort of starting to head towards an iceberg, and that in sales that are preventable, right? So let's start with Anna in terms of, are there portfolio companies that are about to make a huge mistake and you're like, no, don't do this?
Oh, and I've made every mistake in the book. And I always tell people, like, when you're going through this, you're going to make mistakes. Like, it's okay. You got to brush yourself off, because nobody does this perfectly. But I think the biggest mistakes I personally made have been holding on to people too long that weren't going to produce. And that's, why I tend to take such a different view of it now. But when I think back to time I wasted, it was about not having the right people in the door, in the right seats, doing the right things, and holding them accountable to those things. So it all comes back to people for me. And that just, comes with time. I think sometimes we get it lucky, and sometimes we have to learn by continuously falling down.
The procrastination, because it's really hard to let people go, right? That's one of the hardest things. So it's really easy to say, maybe they'll get better, so definitely something that I think all business owners have to face. How about you, Derek?
Yeah, I feel like this whole session has been mostly a confessional in terms of the worst things I had to learn. So, I mean, things like making the wrong, hiring a great salesperson for the wrong sales role at the time, not counseling founders strongly enough to let go of the reins in certain areas of selling. I think a lot of it comes back to regular assessment of where you are in terms of product market fit. And so again, if you're still trying to figure out that fit, well, you should probably call Modern Logic and get some help. And then if you think you've sort of figured it out and you're on to something, well, that requires a certain approach and a certain skill set among the team. And then, which is dramatically different from what you need when the pattern recognition has emerged and you're really on to something. And those transition points are often really hard to see and detect when you're in the middle of them. And so I've made plenty of mistakes where I haven't realized I've moved along on that spectrum, and needed to adjust in pretty big ways based on that movement. And so again, easier said than done, but there's not one playbook here. There's 15 different playbooks depending on where you are on the spectrum.
How about you, Brian?
I've always felt when it's time to retire, I'd write a book, Mistakes from the Field. But then I realized it would start taking the form of an encyclopedia, because there'd just be constant versions coming out. And now I don't have two other people in here that can help me. So maybe we can make that a reality. But when I think of key mistakes, personally, from a sales standpoint, was a question we dissected a little bit earlier that we could have spent even more time on. And that is when to walk away from a deal. I mean, you just get that emotional attachment. And when you walk away from a deal, you're mentally telling yourself that you lost, or you didn't do something right, or you weren't good enough, or, it's all that cloud of self-doubt. So I think as a sales contributor, I've made that mistake. We continue to see it. And how can we detach that emotion? And from a sales leadership standpoint, not specializing fast enough. I mean, I think Anna was talking about not having the right hire, and Derek, you even mentioned hiring a great person for the wrong role, but not specializing fast enough as you're scaling up. Your data proves that your best closers are not going to be great prospectors, but then expecting them to do all of those skill sets, then you're going to basically take different elements that they're great in and then make them average all the way across, or it's not going to be a good fit. So not specializing as you scale.
I think that's, those are great. I always love to learn from other people's mistakes, so I don't have to make my own. But I agree. Who was it? Horowitz, who said no one goes to school to do this, and we all learn through the school of hard knocks, right? And I think the other component there is just ruthlessly evaluate your own performance regularly and learn from those mistakes so you don't do them again, because that's something we see in our clients, especially when we're looking back at their performances. This is the third time you've done this, it's not working. Time to do something different, right?